With over 5,000 undergraduate students and a program known nationally for a strong emphasis on retail, finance, information systems, and supply chain management, the Sam Walton College of Business is really taking the world by storm. The college has a close relationship, as you can imagine by the name, with Walmart, but it's more than just that. And today we get to sit down with Dean Matt Waller and learn about all the great things that the Sam Walton College of Business is doing. And more importantly, we learn how they've been a great steward of a $50 million gift that they were entrusted with back in 1998. All this and more on today's episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I am your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited to be with you here today. I am on the beautiful University of Arkansas campus. I am here with Dean Matt Waller from the School of Business, and Dean Waller was kind enough to be the first person from the U of A system to actually sit down with us here on the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. So I consider this a real treat and a real pleasure. He is a good friend of mine, and connections were made. And like I said before on a couple of other episodes, it's all about relationships, folks. But those relationships allowed me through these doors into the hallowed halls of the Sam Walton School of Business. And I am here today with Dean Waller as he prepares for an upcoming graduation commencement, which is going to happen here on this campus in the next couple of weeks. So, Dean Waller, without further delay, how are you doing today?
Randy, thank you so much for having me. I am doing really well.
Good,
it's a beautiful day out there today, and commencement is always a exciting time of year for us.
I would imagine so. I mean, it's kind of the culmination of all the hard work and
it is
all of the time and effort that students are putting in. And, it wasn't lost on me as I walked up through the back of the building, and there were a bunch of students. There were classes being held, so people are finishing up their last few classes, and there were a bunch of students clamored around a computer doing some work. I saw some people sitting down on the floor working on their computers, and you can only imagine that people are trying to finish up last-minute projects, last-minute assignments, last-minute essays to finish up the year strong.
That's exactly right. They are busy right now.
Yeah.
And we're all busy because we have, of course, commencement coming up, as you mentioned. But it is a fun time of year because there are so many students. For example, the Walton College has grown so much over the years. And, right now we're going to be graduating, I believe, 1,300 students just from the Walton College this year.
Wow.
And we've just grown so much. I think that not only are we graduating a lot of students, a record number of students, and by the way, there's over 6,000 students, undergraduates in the Walton College alone, and about 500 graduate students. But this time of year in particular, I wind up having the opportunity to hear about all of the great accomplishments of our students because we have an honor society called Beta Gamma Sigma, and I wind up, of course, I go to that and I get to hear about all of the student successes. But this time of year we get to hear about lots of accomplishments of students. Students wind up getting great jobs. The Walton College, one thing we're known for is the fabulous placement rates that we have, but also the kinds of jobs that the students get right out of college. And so, for me, it's so much fun to see that.
Yeah.
And at commencement, many times I get to meet parents and grandparents and siblings and relatives, and I try to stick around and just spend time meeting people. It's really fun.
Take it all in. I mean, that's amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about the school, but I want to start with you. Northwest Arkansas wouldn't be anything without the people, and so you, even though you are the dean here at the school, I'd love for our audience to learn a little bit more about you and your superhero origin story and how you started out. I had a chance to look at your background. I know you went to Penn State.
I did.
Got a couple of degrees there.
Yes.
You also went to Missouri.
I did for my undergraduate.
Yep. And so it's interesting to learn about that. And then you've been here. How long have you been here in Fayetteville?
25 years.
Wow. Okay.
I left the university for a few years because I had a software business that grew to the point where I needed to leave, and so I gave up. It was the year I made tenure. In fact, I gave it up and left.
What was that like?
It was hard in some ways because I loved being a professor. And then when we sold it, of course, I came back. And that's never guaranteed. It was nice that it worked out. And then, so I say I've been here 25 years. I was also, so during that time that I had my software business, although I wasn't working at the university.
What was the name of that business again?
Mercari Technologies.
Right, okay.
I also, but I continued to do research during that time because for an academic institution like this, research is the currency. And so every Friday morning I would spend time on my research.
Okay.
But when I came back, then a few years later, I left. I was still employed by the university, but our entire family moved to China, Shanghai, China, for a year and a half.
I saw that, yeah.
And that was because we did a single cohort Executive MBA program for Walmart. It was for Walmart China. We had like the top group of people from Walmart China, plus executives from other companies like Procter & Gamble, Kimberly-Clark, Maersk, et cetera,
Right.
and they would meet for 4 days a month, come in on a Friday, leave on a Monday. And so we did that, and that would have been impossible for the university to do.
Yeah.
But Walmart funded it, so did Tyson and some other companies, and it made it possible. It was a great thing for the university because of the network that we now have in China. I moved back June of 2009, and that network that we developed in China is still paying off today. We have a lot of programs going on in China even right now. So
you developed and built some relationships over there then that have stood the test of time for sure.
They have. But we've lived here for 25 years. We moved here when my youngest was 9 months old.
Wow. Okay.
The other 3 kids were born here.
Okay.
My oldest is a daughter, and she graduated 3 years ago from Walton College, and she now works for General Mills and Rogers.
Okay.
And then I've got a son that's a senior in engineering, and he'll graduate in May. I've got a son that's a sophomore in the business school, and I've got a daughter at Fayetteville High. So my oldest 3, of course, have gone or are going to the University of Arkansas. My youngest seems to be committed to going here. We truly do love Arkansas. I mean, I love the Buffalo River.
Yeah.
I love Beaver Lake. We've got lots of great restaurants we didn't used to have. We have great arts. My oldest son, who's graduating this May, he loves mountain biking, and so in fact, just on Sunday after we had Easter lunch, he went to Kohler to do mountain biking.
Yeah.
So there's just so much to do here. It's such a wonderful place to live.
It is. It is. Now, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay, all right.
And my wife is from St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis. Okay. Did
So
you
this
guys
is
meet up at Missouri or at Penn State?
We met at Mizzou.
Okay.
My wife was in the first semester of her MBA program, and I was in my senior year. And It was during the I-70 series.
Okay.
You know, when the Cardinals and the Royals were playing in the World Series. It was kind of a fun time for a St. Louis person, a Kansas City person.
Right. It didn't end well for one of that one
That's
camp,
right.
though.
That's
So
right.
yeah, was it Don Dinkinger? Is that the umpire?
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. So
But now we also have a lot of relatives in Dallas, so this is a very central place for us. You know,
Yeah.
Kansas City, St. Louis, and Dallas are all very close, you know, relatively speaking. But we've also, people are so relational here and friendly that I've just truly, it would be very hard to move for us at this point.
Yeah.
And my oldest daughter is getting married on New Year's Eve to a young man from Springdale, and they met in a marketing class here in the Walton College when they were, I believe, sophomores.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting, man. So it's coming full. I mean, you're seeing the culmination of a lot of things happen right here. So this really has become home for you.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
you know, you were talking about relationships. I know that's one of your focal points, and I agree with it. Relationships are so important. I consider them to be a necessary but not sufficient condition in business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you can have relationships and not be able to deliver, or you can have, but if you can deliver and you don't have relationships, it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
And so one thing I've noticed, because now we've lived here 25 years, we've been married 33 years, so this is the longest we've ever lived anywhere.
Right.
But the relationships, not just in Northwest Arkansas, but really throughout Arkansas, are so rich. I mean, think of the last 25 years, who has graduated from the Walton College of Business?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you've got people like John Furner, CEO of Sam's Club. He graduated when I was in my second year here as a faculty member. But there's lots of these people all over, really, the country. But those relationships you wind up making with, you know, students and their families and their businesses are so much fun to me, because I love seeing what people do with their lives.
Right.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
I had a student. I'll tell you just a quick story. Amazing. And I'll use his name because he wouldn't mind. I know him pretty well. Fred Bauman was on the Pillsbury team here in town, and that's before Diageo bought Pillsbury and eventually sold it to General Mills.
Mm-hmm.
But he was in a sales position. Fred was on the Pillsbury team in town. Of course, this is 1995, I think, or 4. And so it's still early on the development of Northwest Arkansas. Well, he took the second MBA class I've ever taught in my life, you know, and it was called something like Introduction to Logistics. And I really don't think I was a very good teacher at that point. I was trying hard, but I don't think I was. But he was the type of student, he would work all the problems in the back of the chapter. This was an evening MBA program.
Right.
And then he would go apply it to Pillsbury. And then he did that whole semester, and then the next semester he took a course from me called Logistics Modeling. And that's like the application of statistics and probability theory and optimization to logistics and supply chain problem. Well, he did the same thing again. So before long, they made him the first supply chain manager on that team.
Right.
And eventually, when Pillsbury was purchased by General Mills made him their first supply chain manager on that team. Well, today, he's senior VP of strategy for JDA Software, which is in Phoenix. JDA is the largest supply chain logistics software company in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's just an example, but I've seen so much of this now. And the reason is Northwest Arkansas has provided so much opportunity for people.
It feels that way when talking to people, and your story is not. I mean, I've heard this story over and over again in different iterations, and I think it's interesting to hear it from your perspective as both an educator, but also as an entrepreneur, right? You wear both hats, and I think it's really interesting to see that the level that people are willing to go to be successful here in Northwest Arkansas. And it's not at the expense of somebody else. It's just that, hey, I'm trying to get better. And a lot of its situations are people are just trying to improve themselves so that they can offer a better solution for their current company. It's not necessarily even a company that they own, right? There's a different mindset as far as that's concerned. Because if you go to both coasts, you go to any business school and everybody's out to start their own company and start their own, organization. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I also think that there's a lot of great companies that are out there that individuals can be a part of and can make a difference, just like what you described what Fred was able to do.
You're exactly right. And I think that is part of the culture here, because when I look at, we have over 400 executives on various boards in the Walton College. We have a bunch of boards.
I saw that.
We have the Dean's Executive Advisory Board, Dean's Alumni Advisory Council, and Dean's Roundtable of Entrepreneurs and Market Makers. Those three are mine.
Right.
The accounting department has a board. The MBA program has a board. There's a bunch of them. There's 400 executives involved across those boards. In addition to that, we have lots of guest speakers. We have people offering to mentor students. Mm-hmm. This, I believe, is the key to achievement. Mm-hmm. And I've been really amazed. I feel quite fortunate to be dean of the business school here. For one thing, I think, of course, the culture here is very giving.
Yeah.
It's very, people take pleasure in seeing one another succeed, which I think is really it's actually part of the values of the Walton College.
Right.
We always represent it by EPIC, excellence, professionalism, innovation, and collegiality. That's what we value. We value excellence, professionalism, innovation, and collegiality. But that collegiality has to do with, I want to see Randy succeed.
Right.
How can I help Randy succeed? Before we started talking about this, I was talking to you about the potential of teaching in our executive education program.
Right.
Because you teach things around leadership and you help people who are introverts become more extroverted and things like that. That's extremely valuable,
right,
to everybody.
Yeah.
And our executive education program focuses on those who are they've already graduated, because we don't, even though the Walton College is committed to our students, we're committed to our students forever.
Right.
We want to help them no matter what they're doing, no matter when they graduated. But the other thing I wanted to just mention briefly, I am so grateful, too, that we are the Sam M. Walton College of Business, and here's why. In my opinion, and I could talk about this for an hour, I believe Sam Walton is the greatest entrepreneur who ever lived. And it's not because I'm in the Sam M. Walton College of Business. If I were at Ohio State, I would believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's lots of evidence that this is true. And those entrepreneurial roots, you see them still working in Walmart, because a lot of people were saying, Walmart's going to go down because of Amazon, this and that. Well, the numbers don't show that.
Right. Right.
So.
No, well, and it's funny. I've been struggling with this whole thing about. The other day I was walking and I try to think about these podcasts because, again, I want to reach the widest audience possible. And the other thing, and I don't think I mentioned to you, when I created this podcast, there was nothing like this out there 5 years ago when I was moving here. So I had no real, outside of what one of my friends told me who invited me to come here, outside of what he told me in his narrative of Northwest Arkansas and what Arkansas was all about, I did not know anything about this area. And if I had had a podcast like this just to learn about it, I mean, of course I knew who Sam Walton was. I know the story. I know who Don Tyson was. I know the story about how he started, but I didn't know really about Crystal Bridges. And I'm an art fanatic. I was kind of embarrassed to be like, I'd heard like briefly it talked about, but when I first moved here, I didn't know the extent to the collection that existed up there and that little hollowed out piece of land that's up there in Bentonville.
What year did you move here?
In 2014.
Yeah, so because it had been around for 3 years, but when you moved here, you didn't know.
I had no idea.
And now they're getting ready to open the momentary, which should be really phenomenal.
It's just like it's an embarrassment of riches as far as I'm concerned. But my point to saying what I was going to say was that over and over again, I keep saying the same things on the podcast, and I keep saying to myself, man, I hope people don't get used to me saying that and kind of, not ignore it or don't listen to it, because I keep saying, man, we live in such a very viable part of the country that for some reason Sam Walton saw fit to set up shop here in Northwest Arkansas. I read his biography, and then I've gone back to reread it to get a better understanding of him, and then I took my kids to the museum. But I am blown away. And I don't care where you stand on the fence of whether you like Walmart or you don't like Walmart. Most people that live in Northwest Arkansas like Walmart. Yes, there's a Target crowd out there. That's fine. I know that might be heresy in some circles, but it is what it is. But, when you look at the very nature of what Sam was trying to accomplish, that is exciting. And he was an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I think that if nothing else, everybody can attach themselves to that, because his whole goal was to make everybody that was in his ecosystem, he wanted to make their lives better. He really did. And I firmly believe that. And I don't know the man from Adam, but I have spoken to other people that knew him personally, and they said, you're spot on. That's exactly the kind of person he was. He would give you the shirt off his back. I mean, he was the real deal. So now I've come to the place where I don't have a problem talking about, all of the great things that are happening here, a lot of which are born out of what Sam Walton started. Mm-hmm. And I think, and it's really exciting. So it's almost like it's hard to talk about Northwest Arkansas without talking about Sam, without talking about the Walmart effect and what it has made for us. And again, I tell people all the time, you may not go to Walmart all the time, but if you like mountain biking, his grandsons are doing some amazing things in the state of Arkansas with regard to mountain biking. His daughter, Alice, has done some amazing things with Crystal Bridges and beyond, and it was her impact that got that started in the first place. So, there's something to be said for that. And so I guess I say all that to say is that I for a while there I was kind of conflicted with having to constantly mention this stuff over and over again, but it's going to come up in a lot of the podcasts that we talk about.
When you look at, so there's no question, Walmart drove efficiency in retail, but also in consumer packaged goods, and also in their competitors. Their competitors had to figure out how to get efficient.
Yeah.
A lot of times people always say, well, Walmart's a tough negotiator. I think all negotiation skills are ubiquitous.
Yeah.
You cannot get a competitive advantage from being a good negotiator. Their efficiencies come as a result of logistics and supply chain management and operational efficiencies in the stores. But one of the things that has really happened, it isn't just Walmart. The kind of innovations that have come out of Northwest Arkansas, Tyson, they're the largest protein producer in the world. There's no one as efficient as they are producing protein at the volume they are. And then J.B. Hunt's business model is extremely unique and generating lots of value for shippers and consumers.
Right.
And I think that we're just on the front end of this. I really do.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there's a long way to go. When you look at all the companies starting up here that are coming up with things that who would have ever imagined? I think about Field Agent and, you mentioned Engine earlier, but there's a long list of them. And Rev Unit, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that we're going to continue to see that grow in Northwest Arkansas over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, you might, and I just came to me, you might be calling this place Silicon Ozarks.
Yeah.
So I like that. So, I mean, and again, each place is going to be its own. And I've spent some time, I used to live in the Bay Area, so I know, I know what Silicon Valley is all about. I have friends that work there, and they eat, sleep, and drink business a certain way. But I'd like to think that we have our own way to do that here in Northwest Arkansas. And I think a big part of that is, family. A big part of that is just a lot of the other things that also take place in this area. Not that that doesn't happen in other other areas. It's just, it's important here.
Yeah.
So it's important here.
Well, I think the other thing that people overlook sometimes is Northwest Arkansas wouldn't be what it is today if it weren't for the rest of Arkansas. Like, for example, Stevens Inc. in Little Rock.
Okay.
They're the largest investment bank, private investment bank outside of Wall Street in the United States, and they're in Little Rock. Well, they did Walmart's first IPO in 1970. They did J.B. Hunt's first IPO in 1983. And they've done transactions with, Tyson and many other companies throughout Arkansas. And that source of capital was so critical in the early days because it was very hard to get.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder, how could these companies have raised money as efficiently had it not been for Stevens? Because I think for some of these companies it would have been challenging to go to Wall Street and appeal to them with these companies. But instead they had a representative here in Stevens that made that work for them.
Yeah, and I think they understood the narrative of what Northwest Arkansas was all about and what they were trying to do. And I think that's important. If anybody can sell anything, if they can tell a compelling story to supplant what they're trying to sell. And obviously they understood what Sam was doing. They understood what J.B. Hunt was doing. So, it was much easier to tell that story than to try to bring somebody from the outside in to then try to understand that and then take it back to the world.
Absolutely.
So, it's a good point. It's a really, really good point. Man, I could talk for days. I mean, there's a lot that we could go into, and there are a lot of things. I did want to ask you this, because this is something that's always been in my mind with regard to education, especially when it comes to business education or any type of education for that matter. A lot of times people say, hey, you can go to business schools, but if you're not being taught by people that have been out there in the trenches getting things done, you're not necessarily getting the real education. And I'm curious to know, when you left to go start your company, in the back of your mind, was one of your thoughts that, I'd like to create a little bit more legitimacy for my platform by going out and building something?
Not really.
Okay.
I just saw the opportunity. I mean, because I had already been consulting and working with companies, so I'd already been doing business.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't. So, but to answer your question, I think it depends on the subject. For example, most of our accounting professors have experience in accounting.
Yeah.
Many of them were working for public accounting firms or in corporate accounting. In an area like economics, microeconomics, for example, or econometrics, some of them do have experience for sure.
Right.
But I think it doesn't help as much in some ways. To some degree, it depends. So another example would be in supply chain management. I think it helps a lot. We've got, two of our professors worked for a big box retailer in merchandising and logistics. We have another professor who teaches sourcing, who was a senior VP of procurement at the Walt Disney Company.
Okay.
So, we've got a lot of people like that. And there's other things, where I think, if you think of something like real estate, you need someone that is practicing that now.
Yeah.
And we do that. So we kind of have a portfolio. The other thing is, business statistics. Again, if you've been in industry too long, a lot of times your skills and those kind of things decrease.
Right.
So it'd be hard to teach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really is a mix. I would say.
And I guess, you're right, it would depend. I mean, certainly anybody that's teaching entrepreneurship needs to have gone out and done some entrepreneurship and have practiced and started their own business. And I know my friend Mark Zweig, who teaches here at the Sam Walton School of Business, has taken a couple of firms to the Inc. 500, 5,000 list, which is a good litmus test for success.
Yeah, that's a big litmus
yeah,
test.
it is a big litmus test. I mean, I always call him a business savant. He's forgotten more than most people will ever know in the entrepreneurial space, and I always learn a lot from him. It's one of the reasons why I'm here in Northwest Arkansas to begin with. But no, I mean, it sounds like you have surrounded yourself with some pretty amazing people, an amazing staff that is really helping you to take the Sam Walton School of Business to a whole nother level. And not just what you can do at the undergraduate level, but also on the graduate level. And I mean, so you look back to what was it, a $50 million investment that was made in this program in 1998.
It changed the game for us.
Changed the game for you guys, and you pretty much have not looked back since then.
No, it is, and I was fortunate enough to be able to be here through the transition.
Yeah,
and it is remarkable. No question.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, man, there are a lot of questions that I have that I would want to ask. If you certainly want to give a plug to the MBA program, I'd love for you to just kind of share and give any encouragement to people that might be on the fence about maybe applying to do it. What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, we have two forms of the MBA program. One is a full-time program. It's
right.
2 years. And it just got redesigned. We shut it down for a year to redesign it. And when we redesigned it, we spent a lot of time with people in the industry figuring out where are we missing it, what's coming up, what are the opportunities. We benchmarked the best schools we could find. And the nice thing about that, see, most schools won't just shut down and restart.
Right.
They'll incrementally change. And in some ways, that it hurt us to do that because it'll hurt us in the rankings to not have a MBA program for a short time. But in the long run, it's going to allow us to go into the next tier of MBA programs because we designed one of the best programs in the country. I'm very convinced of it.
Okay.
And while the students are in the full-time program, they're interning the entire time with companies on things relevant to what they're learning. And then we have the other form of it is the Executive MBA program, the EMBA program, which is one Saturday a month for 2 years, and the rest of it is online. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think the average number of years of experience in the Executive MBA program is around 10 or 12 years.
Yep.
So these people have tremendous experience, and they are typically very motivated. Mm-hmm. And so we have people coming from all over the country to that program because you can just fly in on a Friday,
right,
and then take classes and then fly back. But we also have quite a few from Arkansas and Texas and Missouri, et cetera. It is a phenomenal program because of the fact that not only we have good curriculum, but the people you meet, the networking is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And when you're in a MBA program, even if you're around competitors, you don't see one another as competitors at that point. You have your student hat on.
Right.
And so I think it is good for students to then recalibrate, to really boundary span and look around them.
Yeah.
But if someone was on the fence, I would say, they need to count the cost in the sense, I mean, the financial cost isn't as bad as the time cost.
Sure.
But our students have done so well that have gone through these programs. It's also a way to redirect you might be stuck in some area, some discipline. This is a great way to retool.
Yeah.
We also have a master's in accounting, master's in information systems. We're getting ready to roll out a master's in economic analytics and some other programs as well. Most people, I look back at my time in the master's program and the PhD program, but particularly the master's program, I'm still in contact with a lot of these people.
Yeah.
And they are in very significant positions around the country. Now, same with if you look at the alumni of our MBA program, it's remarkable what they've accomplished.
And the alumni network is very strong here.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. It's
global.
Yeah.
I think because if you've worked here, you've worked in international business. There's a high probability you have.
Mm-hmm.
So you wind up having contacts all over the world.
Right.
which is valuable today, because if you're in e-commerce, you're sourcing globally usually.
Right.
We're so interconnected right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exciting, man. I've talked to some people that have gone through the program, and they had nothing but great things to say about their experience and what they were able to take away. And I worked alongside some people that are graduates of the MBA program here, and I got to say that they are beyond excellent colleagues and also practitioners of their craft. And so I have to certainly commend you for what you have been able to produce here at the Sam Walton School of Business. So you've done a great job.
Well, thank you. The team here is phenomenal.
Yeah.
This is a very collaborative group, and having people like Mark Zweig has just been phenomenal.
Oh, I'm sure.
He's an example of someone from industry that's always giving back to us.
Absolutely.
In many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've actually got a chance to sit in on some of his classes when he brought people in, like Kirsten Blowers from Riff Raff, and Matt Lewis from Lewis Ford, and so many others. So it is good to kind of see that firsthand and see the impact that it has, especially on the students. So that's awesome. Well, before we leave, I always like to pick your brain, because you're a local, and you can maybe even school me on some things. But where do you like to go hang out here when you have some off time, and when you're not traveling? What do you like to do here in Northwest Arkansas?
For just spare time?
Yeah, just spare time.
Well, I like spending time with my kids, so anything they want to do, and
Sure,
my wife.
Sure.
My wife and I really enjoy Beaver Lake.
Okay.
So we keep a boat at Rocky Branch Marina.
Okay.
We like to go out on the water. We like to float in the Buffalo River.
Okay.
Sometimes we float in the White River too.
Right.
And we like concerts. So we go to concerts at the AMP, sometimes the Walton Arts Center. And then I would say, we go to Crystal Bridges quite a bit.
Okay.
But also, there's just so many good restaurants that keep popping up.
Right. What's your favorite now? I mean, what's your flavor of the month?
Well, I would say for lunch, I often go to Tuscan Trotter if I'm in Bentonville. I like that a lot.
Okay.
I also like, Press Room, especially for brunch. And for dinner, up in Bentonville, I like to go to Preacher's Son.
I've heard about Preacher's Son.
It's awesome. It's hard to get a seat there.
That's what I hear.
You have to get reservations.
Yeah.
And then Oven and Tap up there. And Rogers, there's a number of restaurants that have popped up recently that I've tried that I really like and enjoy. If we're going to be going to a concert at the AMP,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times we will go to Pinnacle Bar and Grill.
Okay.
Right there.
Yep.
Or Ruth's Chris before we go to the concert. Sometimes just for hors d'oeuvres and drinks and stuff.
Right.
But there's so many restaurants, and of course in Fayetteville, we my favorite restaurant closed.
Oh, really?
James at the Mill. I know it's not.
Yes,
it was in Johnson.
Yes.
I loved that restaurant. We go to Bordino's quite a bit, and several others, Theo's. And
So James on the Mill, though, didn't he start a pizza place?
he did. Yeah,
Which is actually pretty good.
absolutely.
Yeah, which is actually pretty good. And I didn't put the two together until I went there, but he has a pizza place in Springdale,
Yes,
which is
sir.
actually pretty good.
Very
So
good.
yeah, there are a lot of really good places to eat. It's not the only thing that we do here, but it's always nice to know.
It is.
It's always nice to know some of the other things that are available to individuals. And, when you're not out taking advantage of all the wonderful scenery here in Northwest Arkansas, there's certainly a good place to break bread.
Indeed.
There's that. I think, that's really about it. I really appreciate you taking some time. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave with our audience before we close?
I would say, Randy, I'm glad that you're doing this.
Thank you.
To people, interviewing people in Northwest Arkansas. I think from my perspective, my selfish perspective, it helps what you're doing, because I'm always trying to recruit faculty, trying to recruit students, trying to recruit staff. This is a big challenge for me.
Right.
It's much easier now than it was 10 years ago. But so thank you for the effort you're putting in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's honestly that's my biggest goal, is just to make sure that Northwest Arkansas is not a best kept secret. I mean, yeah, we'd like it to be the way it is, but you never grow if you stay the same. And
that's right.
And so I think it's important for us to encourage as many people to come here and see what we're all about. And I honestly did not know what to expect that first time I flew into XNA, which is our local airport. And, I got to say, I drove down the road and I really wasn't feeling it. But then I spent a week here, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I really dig it here in Northwest Arkansas. So you're absolutely right. Well, Dean Waller, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and we look forward to exploring more of what the University of Arkansas has to offer. And if you're an example of what we can expect as we encounter other of your peers here on the campus and elsewhere, then it should definitely make for some really great podcast episodes in the future. And I think there's probably another episode that we can do in the future, and we'll have to come back and figure that out, because I'd love to sit down with you again and chat and learn a little bit more about you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you so much. Well, there you have it, folks. Dean Matt Waller from the Sam Walton School of Business. We really appreciate Dean Waller sitting down with us and having this conversation today. And folks, I just want to remind you that, the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast is available wherever great podcasts can be found, on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, you name it. You can find us there. Even Pandora coming real soon, and you'll be able to check us out on Pandora. So we really appreciate you taking time to listen to this podcast. Please share it with a friend if you think it might impact their decision to move here, or if they already live here but they don't know where to go hang out on a Friday night. Have them listen to this podcast and learn a little bit more about what the locals like to do. That's all we have for this week, and we will be with you again next week. And so certainly our podcast, as always, drops at 12 noon on Monday. And should you ever need to reach out to us, just email hello@iamnorthwestarkansas.com, and we'll get back to you right away. Remember, you can check us out on Facebook at I Am Northwest Arkansas, and you can also check out our website at iamnorthwestarkansas.com. That's all I have for you this week. Listen, folks, I hope you go out and make it a great day, and I will look forward to hanging out with you next week. Bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit iamnorthwestarkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.